You're missing a comma here.
Oh, yeah, I definitely am.
Always proofread in hard copy. Proofreading on a computer does not work.
Mm.
Excellent word choices, by the way. I don't think I've ever had a student use bedeviled in a paper before. And I love all the B words. Bemuse, beguile,
Beseech, bedazzle,
beget,
classic, betoken.
bemoan. Oh, I could do this all day, but focus, Janine. Ah, yes. Next comment. Ah, hmm. Washington succeeded owing to his presenting himself as a leader, elite status as a plantation owner, and his ability to establish commonality.
Yes.
Have you ever heard of the of the idea of parallelism,
Oh,
of,
shoot. Yeah.
of matching grammatical structure? Because, here you have presenting himself as a leader, gerund, his ability, noun, um, elite status, noun with possessive pronoun. I mean, can you hear it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas, if you imagine his ability to present himself as a leader, to project elite status, and to establish
Establish
commonality.
commonality.
Yes, yes. I mean, there are a plethora of options, three gerunds, three nouns, but any one of them communicates to your reader that you are in safe hands. This writer will not do anything truly horrible to you, like assaulting you with grammatically incompatible clauses.
No, totally. My English teacher made us do like 800 worksheets on it senior year. I wanted to get the draft in early so I can get your comments before the deadline.
Oh,
And to be honest, I had kind of a tough weekend and didn't get to proofread as much as I normally would.
oh, well,
Okay, so I correct all of that, then the writing's good?
it's a bit more complicated. I've written some suggestions. Do you have a little more time?
Yeah, I mean, I want to make it as strong as possible, but I know office hours are almost over if you.
Oh, no, no, it's no problem. I just turned in a draft of my new book, so there's no chance I'll be productive. Well, I have absolutely nothing to do until dinner with my better half at 8:30.
Well, hopefully it won't take that long. So what else is there to fix?
um, it can all use a bit more flair.
Flair?
Well, if you want to get through to a reader, you have to make the past feel human and real. For instance, have you ever been to India?
No, never.
Well, it's quite spectacular. And the spirituality is jubilant, and who knew lentils could be delicious? You really must go sometime.
Well, I do like lentils.
Well, this place has oodles and oodles of money for travel, if it's related to research. I have a student once who developed his entire senior thesis around getting funding to visit places where he could bungee jump. And he's now a district attorney for a major American city. You're a history major.
Poli sci.
Ah, well, that's all right. And you're what year are you?
Junior.
My son is a junior. Is Zachary Wheeler?
Oh, he's in my section for modern poetry. He's really smart.
I like to think so. His being a student here, it's been interesting. It's forced me to see my students not just as walking thesis statements, but as human beings, which of course is very disorienting. Oh, right, here it is. Now, I'm really not as informed about South Asia as I ought to be. I'm trying to bone up, and I ran into this anecdote. So, well, there's this province called Sindh, okay, in what is today southern Pakistan. And in 1843, Charles James Napier was sent there by the East Indian Company to put down a rebellion. But at the Battle of Hyderabad, he conquered the whole area, and he sent a telegram. Now, keep in mind, these British men, they had all been at the same fancy private schools, or rather public schools, as the Brits quite ridiculously put it. And they all had these absurd classical educations. And anyway, Napier sends a telegram back to the colonial office containing one word, peccavi, as in quoniam peccavi Ignatii pater. Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. I mean, get it? Sinned.
Yeah,
I have sinned, as in the province.
yeah, that's pretty disturbing.
Oh God, yes. I mean, he's making a joke about disseminating a civilization.
Like, we just killed people.
Well,
Hilarious.
it's awful, but it's also so revealing. Lands were ravaged, all armies raised, all in an attempt to impress friends from prep school. You learn a lot from a story like that.
Yeah, yeah, I can see that.
Ugh. Mm. Do you like my chair? It's supposed to help stretch out your cervical disc or something like that. I have bad back pain, the result, I'm afraid, of a lifetime of souring sources. It's like some ghastly metaphor for the price you pay for knowledge. So don't hunch, Zoe. When you're looking for your new illuminating evidence, never hunch. Just pull that evidence up to you. What my son would call a pro tip. But, well, you see what I mean, though.
Yeah, yeah, I understand.
No, I mean about evidence. Pakavi. That's the kind of story I want you to put in your paper. Or or wait. Here's one of my favorites. So, in 1775, fighting has broken out near Boston, and the Continental Congress meets to appoint a general for the new army. Now, George Washington's a top contender. He's probably the only person in the country most experienced with military command. But colonial Americans, you'll recall from class, they were so worried about tyranny. There had never been a country before in human history that managed to sustain a system where people chose their own government.
Right, they all ended in chaos or dictatorships.
Exactly. And they're terrified. The new general will just seize power.
The Julius Caesar thing.
Yes. Now, Washington wants this job very badly, but he's strategic. When he's asked about taking command, he tells Congress, although I am sensible of the high honor done to me, yet I feel great distress, for fear my abilities and my experience may not be equal to the task. But here's the best part. He showed up to give that speech in his military uniform. So basically, he's saying, please don't give me this job. And the whole time he's wearing his resume. Can you hear it? The detail, the palpable.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, I think it's an absolutely wonderful story. To imagine those men not knowing they would pick Washington, just struggling to figure things out. Oh, I would give anything to be in that room, wouldn't you?
Probably not. No.
Right. Um, well, you can borrow this if you like,
Oh, thank you.
but you have to give it back, though. God knows why. I'll never reread it. But,
Of course. So the parallelisms, the footnotes, more flair in the evidence, and then the writing's good.
well, actually, these comments were more about writing than argument. I like to offer very thorough comments based purely on writing for 3 pages. Most teachers in this Gothic pile don't see that as part of their job to teach any practical skills. But, I'm glad you bought this in early. I can see that you've done an impressive amount of work on it.
Well, I tend to get a little intense about fulfilling requirements. Only child. Or it's weird you never get to graduate from being an only child to an only adult.
True. Although, I wish you hadn't plowed ahead like this, just written the full draft without getting any comments on the thesis.
I was just excited to lay out the ideas.
I'm afraid you're in for a substantial rewrite. Your argument is Well, fundamentally unsound.
Unsound.
Uh, a successful American Revolution was only possible because of the existence of slavery.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, the whole idea came out of your lecture on how most revolutions have two phases. There's the initial moderate revolution led by upper middle class people. They make moderate constitutional changes, but they don't help the people who are really suffering. They don't do anything about economic inequality, real injustices.
Well, yes, that's mostly true. Yes.
And so new leaders with broader popular support take over in a second radical revolution. The moderates and the radicals can't agree, so the revolutions usually turn into violent, drawn out conflicts, basically civil wars. That's what happened in France, in Russia, in Mexico, in China with Mao overthrowing the nationalists. That's what you talked about in class.
Yes.
Is any part of that wrong?
No.
But in the US, the people who were really suffering, who would have become radicals, were the slaves. And everybody else, upper middle class white people, poor white people, were pretty happy with the way things were. That's why the US never had a radical revolution. It stopped in its moderate phase and had one of the most unified, non destructive revolutions of all time.
Is this a theory that you read somewhere? I mean, is there a book that.
No, it's my theory.
Because there are a lot of prevalent theories about why the American Revolution was so moderate. Do you remember the ones we discussed in class?
Yes.
We can review them if you like.
I don't need to review them.
There were a lot of factors.
Revolutions tend to stay moderate when people are fighting an outside enemy, like the British. Pre-industrial revolutions were more moderate because radicals couldn't get their message out.
Good. Yes. There's also my own theory that diverse economies lead to more gradual change.
Right.
Admittedly, it was my first book. I'm not proud of the execution.
Yeah, I understand that. I mean, I get that all of that definitely played a role.
I should have started by saying it's a very interesting idea. It's one of the most original arguments I've seen.
You don't have to start with a compliment if you don't respect my work.
I do respect it. Don't get me wrong. It's bold, creative thinking. Reading it made me wish that you would speak up more in class. But your thesis is not an explanation that any scholars who really know the period could agree with.
Wow. You're saying universally everyone who studied the American Revolution would disagree with me?
Well, yes. I mean, I've read what they think. They're my colleagues. I edited their work together for your comparative revolutions textbooks. And none of them have reached the conclusion you did.
Like you said, it's original.
It's also not a good fit for the available evidence.
Yeah, I'm sure that's the reason no one's thought of it.
How do you mean?
Never mind. I think it's funny that a lot of smart, educated people don't think that an institution affecting millions of people played a role in the revolution.
Technically, in this era, it was more like 500,000.
That an institution affecting 500,000 slaves played a role in the revolution, except it's also maybe not surprising given who those historians are.
It's not about who the historians are. A lot of historians have written about the role race has played in American history. I mean, there's clear evidence that during the Civil War, wealthy Confederates used racism to get poor white support. Our modern electoral map is a drawing of who liked and who hated the Civil Rights Act. No one is questioning the role of race in American politics. One only need to turn on the TV and watch these stupid Republican primary debates. Oh, I'm sorry if you're a Republican. Of course, I respect that.
I'm not a Republican.
Oh, good. Well, right. I mean, am I right?
I actually haven't been watching much. To be honest, I can't really handle the fact that this is our last year with Obama.
I know. Well, thank God that they're hopelessly divided, because otherwise the situation would be dire. What I'm trying to say is that the evidence from this period doesn't fit. You're saying if there hadn't been slavery, poor whites would have pushed for radical economic change. But that doesn't hold up. I mean, even in colonies like New Hampshire and Massachusetts, where slaves made up less than 2% of the population, there was no serious discussion of economic reform. Uh, Unlike France, there was no famine, no crisis. It's just read the letters, the diary entries. This was long before Karl Marx. The, the idea of democracy already felt huge and exciting and terrifying to these people. More radical change just wasn't on the table, with or without slavery.
Well, I found sources that said different.
Hmm. Wealthy and poor whites were unified by their interest in preserving slavery. Where did you read that?
It's in my footnotes.
www.revolutionarywar.net. You know what they're calling your generation? And I think this term is much better than millennials. Millennials makes it sound like you're all hopeful religious fanatics. Digital natives. Have you heard that?
Yeah, somewhere. I think I saw it online.
Well, I think it's wonderful. I heard it at a modern pedagogy workshop. Oh, and another professor there. For the rest of the day, he kept deliberately confusing it and saying technological savages. Well, the trouble I have with this information from www.revolutionary.net is that it's wrong. 5 states abolished slavery during the war. Northern delegates to the Constitutional Convention fought tooth and nail to try and end the international slave trade. Far from being unified by slavery, whites were actually fighting over it.
Okay, maybe, but you can't say they weren't unified. Even if they didn't all like slavery, they were unified by not caring much about it. You said they were willing to fight over slavery at the Constitutional Convention, but how much were they willing to fight? Not enough. They compromised over it. If there had been a slave revolt, they wouldn't have supported it. They wouldn't have risked division to support it.
That's almost certainly true.
Having the biggest injustice in a society all concentrated on just 20% of the population made it easier for the rest of the population to agree. Why did the American Revolution go so much better than any other revolution in any other country ever? It's easier to be pro-equality when there's a subjugated minority in your midst.
Well, that's a horrifying possibility. I like that you stick by your opinions. You know, so many of your classmates, and I hate to say it, but the women especially, they come in here with their cute outfits and their faces all full of makeup. And I try to push them on their thinking, and they nod and they tell me that's so interesting, and they'll do that right away. They're so eager to do what I tell them when what I want, of course, is a debate.
Of course.
And when I get it, it's usually from the men. And who wants them sharpening their debating skills?
Right. There's this joke. Where did the male debater get his water? From, well, actually,
That's funny. You know, I was in the third class of women here, and the men couldn't decide whether they were allowed to argue with us or whether it was unchivalrous. And then if you argued with them, they thought it meant you wanted to go out.
that must have been pretty crazy.
Oh, it was. You know, when I found out I was having a boy, I thought, oh no. I mean, I was sincerely worried that I would impair my son in some way, hold him back, because I didn't want him to be president or head of the history department or CEO. I want that, well, to be you. I wanted a daughter. I could have made her unstoppable. I changed my mind. I want you to keep your thesis, but you will need to do better research.
What exactly does that mean, better research?
Well, the section on the white standard of living was great. It's very compelling. But many of the other paragraphs are conjectures. You make huge claims about what might have motivated people, and you cite psychologists, bloggers, but you offer no primary documents, no perspectives from people who were there about what they saw going on. You need to hit the library.
The library?
Yes, the library. You go find some books, big heavy books made of paper.
That's not what I meant.
Not always easy. You can't just type a couple of words in a box and know everything there is to know. Sometimes you actually have to work to get the truth. John Adams hated Paris. You know how I know that?
From a book?
Mm.
I believe you.
Ah, I thought it was here. I never can tell whether my memory is going or whether I've lived through so many things that it all blurs together. I've led so many. Ah. Oh, well, please, if I'm boring you.
No, you're not.
Look, Adam says it right here in a letter to Abigail. And there's a footnote where Hollings tells me, in case I don't believe him, I can go find the letter in the Massachusetts Historical Archives, and I can hold it in my own two hands and see where Adam signed it. That's how I know it's true.
But there won't be proof like that for a thesis like this.
Not proof that you can Google, no.
There won't be proof that I can hold in my hand either. No one writes down what they're actually feeling. Like, if someone emails you tonight and says, how were office hours? You're not going to write back, actually, this one student had some ideas about American history that made me uncomfortable. You're going to write pretty good. And if someone wrote a paper 100 years from now on these office hours, all they know is that they were pretty good. I'm not going to find a diary entry where someone says, June 10th, today I used racism to bond with the other delegates. That piece of paper doesn't exist, but I know that's what happened.
No, you can't.
You can say what you want, but I know. I know because I know how race affects people. I understand how people work. I mean, we don't have a bunch of letters by a bunch of slave women saying, hey, I hate being raped. Sometimes I think about killing myself or him, but I know that's how they felt.
Wait a minute. Have you been raped?
No, I'm saying I'm a human being. I have empathy and experiences, and I know how they must have felt.
You may be right. You're probably right about the feelings that were there. It's possible you're right about the effects those feelings had, but it isn't history.
Yes, it is history. It's a part of American history.
I don't mean it's not important or it's not part of the American story. I mean, you're using your personal experience to embellish on the past. That's historical fiction. That's not what historians do. Historians sift through evidence, documents, objects, recordings to draw informed conclusions about the past. That is our trade. Ordinary people guess. They tell themselves stories that seem to make sense, and then, because they seem to make sense, they believe them. Women are naturally less intelligent than men. The sun goes around the earth. There are weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Those ideas sound convincing to some people, and some people just know they're true, but when you look at the evidence, they're false. The entire point of a university is the idea of expertise. We are the people who refuse to go with our feelings, our guts. We look at the evidence. And by doing that, we drive back ignorance.
But if you say you need evidence, you're excluding the people who couldn't leave evidence behind, people who couldn't write, anyone without money or an education, anyone with no possessions for historians to dig up.
Excluding, no. There's archaeology, court testimonies, the occasional stray magic letter. But some stories are easier to tell than others. It's an unfortunate consequence of sound methodology.
An unfortunate consequence.
Yes, a very unfortunate consequence. It's still better than making things up.
You know, I remember going on field trips when I was little. My school was into very fancy activities, so we went to a lot of museums. And I remember these 10-foot high paintings in gold frames with kings and gods and soldiers and beautiful women in big shiny dresses. I loved the dresses. I used to say I wanted to be a duchess when I grew up. And it took until I was maybe 8 or 9 to realize none of the women in the paintings looked like me. And there were like ships, churches, fruit, a lot of fruit, but never the people who sewed the dresses or picked the fruit.
I know.
It's messed up.
Yes, it is.
But our textbook, the book you edited, it's the exact same thing. Soldiers, statesmen, women in big shiny dresses, and like bunches and bunches and bunches of white men, as if that's all there was in this country.
It's a book about inner political workings, not a general history. But it stinks. I get it. Believe me, I hate it.
Okay, well then change it. Hello, you have power. Let me do the kind of history I want to do.
I'm afraid I can't simply do that. Let's say that you decide to apply to graduate schools.
I'm not going to apply to graduate schools.
But if you did, a good grade from me is a signal to my colleagues that this young woman has all the skills you're looking for in a historian. But by the standards of academia, your current work is unsophisticated.
Unsophisticated?
Oh, you have potential, a great deal of it. Maybe you should think about graduate school. The field could use people like you, people pushing, demanding modernization. But if you want to change how people do things, it helps if you're the best. Now, I've gotten to do what I want in my career because I have worked to be twice as good as anyone else. So find the sources, get the rock solid evidence, and check every comma and prove me wrong.
But it'll always be harder to write a really excellent paper about Black history than about white history.
From this time period? Well, yes. I mean, that's the way things are. I can't fix that.
If I made just the writing changes you suggested, polished sentences, added footnotes, what grade would I get?
I can't tell you that. It's against university policy. And even if it weren't, Zoe, you're a bright young woman. I don't want you to ask, am I meeting the bare requirements? I want you to pursue excellence. I want you to ask yourself, am I doing the absolute best I could possibly do?
I can't rewrite my paper that much. I can't get 20 pages of all new, very difficult to find evidence in a week.
I'll help you. Not to worry.
I don't need help. I mean, I don't have time. My schedule is already crazy. I used spring break to do this paper. I thought I'd already wrote this essay, more than done it.
Well, you would be amazed what you can accomplish in 6 good hours of distraction-free time. I mean, what are you doing this weekend? I have a friend who teaches African American history at Duke. I can ask her to recommend some sources.
This weekend, Sandra Day O'Connor's speaking on campus.
Yes, I know. It's very exciting, but it should only take about 2 hours.
Well, I'm a part of the Cross Cultural Alliance and we're organizing a protest.
You're protesting the first female Supreme Court justice?
Yes, it's a ton of work. We're writing up leaflets on the real effects of her work. We're going to be live tweeting rebuttals to her speech and staging a walkout. It's a lot to
Are you
organize.
opposed to there being female Supreme Court justices?
In 41 decisions involving racial minorities, O'Connor voted against the minority all but 2 times.
That can't be right.
You're forgetting that I know how to use Google. She voted against extra funding for minority school districts.
Well, she didn't vote against it. She felt that it was unconstitutional.
She voted against redistricting to get Black representatives elected.
There are a lot of good reasons to oppose gerrymandering. I mean, she supported affirmative action. I remember this. I lived through this. She was a supporter of affirmative action.
She supported the idea of affirmative action over and over again, but every time an actual plan came in front of her, she struck it down.
It does sound like she had a troubling record on racial issues. Well, she had a troubling record in general. I mean, Bush v. Gore. Jeez. Bush v. Gore, I ask you. God, were you even alive for Bush's election?
Yes.
Oh, thank God. But the thing is, Zoe,
I don't really need you to tell me the thing.
spot on her record, a very dark spot, does not negate everything she accomplished. I mean, do you truly believe that a woman who was privy to 20 years of Supreme Court cases has nothing to teach you?
Thank you, but I know the facts about her and I'll make up my own mind. I mean, do you need to listen to a speech by everyone you disapprove of? Should I pull up a Dick Cheney video?
So you're going to be so busy protesting against female Supreme Court justices that you can't rewrite your paper.
That's basically right, although it's a deliberate mischaracterization of what I said.
Spoken like a historian. You know, I never do this, but I can offer you a 1-week extension.
Thank you, but there's a rally next week in Bridgeport for police reform.
You don't live in Bridgeport.
That's why it's going to take so long. We have to get there. Then we're doing a recruitment event the day before, and then Howard Stern is visiting campus.
And you're going to see him or protesting him?
Protesting him, obviously.
Ah, his jokes are offensive.
No, he supports Israel.
Okay. Well, I am going to sidestep that whole thing. Look, I have to break it to you. You're overcommitted to your extracurriculars.
It's not an extracurricular. It's not like marching band. I don't do this for fun.
Well, if you don't want the extension, then just turn in what you have and get the grades you get.
I need at least a B+.
Well, I need a new lumbar region, yet I do not have one. You have agency, Zoe. You're making a decision about how to spend your time. Can I tell you a story?
Look, I understand your point, but if you can try to understand mine.
My freshman and sophomore year, a girlfriend and I made plans to bicycle from Paris to Amsterdam. Then I was offered a fellowship with the Smithsonian, a big opportunity, okay? But I had a feeling now was my time. And if I was ever going to be young, just ridiculously young and spontaneous, now was my time. I chose the trip. Have you ever been to Amsterdam?
No.
Well, I had one of the best months of my life there, but I paid the price for that. The point is, choices have consequences.
I obviously understand that.
Your weekends organizing protests instead of doing homework, and then that's fine. That's even laudable. But the consequence is your work does not merit a good grade.
Well, I need one.
Well, I did not take you for a grade grubber.
I'm not. I have a 3.84. I'm on track to be Phi Beta Kappa.
Good for you. I made Phi Beta Kappa. I had to make certain sacrifices to achieve it.
The Carson Fellowship for Social Justice is my dream job for after graduation. They train you in community organizing, lobbying, communications. It's perfect for me and for what I want to do. But I heard that they weigh transcripts heavily in the evaluation process. Campus activism has taught me all the real skills I would actually need for the fellowship, but because our society buys into bullshit credentialism and signs of elitism more than actual skill, I need a high GPA to get started on my life's work.
Zoe, it's not bullshit credentialism. I am telling you, you are lacking some of the real skills that go into top quality historical work.
But those skills are useless.
Useless. Well, strangely, I have found them to be of enormous use.
But you don't have a normal adult human job. I just mean, you know, you're not training dozens of future historians. Everyone at this school is going into investment banking, like literally everyone. They're here for 4 years of parties, 1 semester of microeconomics, and their on-campus Goldman Sachs interview.
Well, we needn't concern ourselves with the lacrosse players.
Come on, you have to have some thoughts about the bullshit that is a liberal arts education. A bunch of rich kids spending literally $500,000 to get random bits of knowledge and a piece of paper they can show lazy employers who can't spot skill or work ethic and just want to know if you're a $500,000 kid.
It's easy at your age to be cynical about education. It is. My son calls this place charm school.
That's actually pretty good. I might use that.
But I think you will find as you grow older an effable but very real difference between you and your less elitely educated peers. An ability to see nuance, an ability to serve the world in a way others can't. The State Department calls me for advice about mass protests in foreign countries. And I have been able to give sound, well supported advice because of my supposedly useless knowledge. You want skills that translate directly to a job? Go to a vocational school. What we as an institution have on offer are 44 million manuscripts, some of the best minds in the world available to you for picking. Just take advantage of that. There are others to take your place who would really welcome this opportunity.
I earned this spot. Some people might want to use that spot to party. Some people might want to use it to get ready for a PhD. I want to study ideas that I find interesting, do some good, and qualify for the job I want. And for $64,000 a year, that's not a lot to ask. $64,000 a year that pays for your health insurance, your travel, and your son's fully funded tuition.
Women fought to go here. We petitioned. We held a sit-in. We knew this place was valuable, and we fought to be part of it. And here you are, taking it for granted.
Only it's not valuable if you don't understand my work.
I understand your work perfectly. It's just flawed work, and it doesn't deserve an A, and it won't get one.
What grade do you think you deserve?
Excuse me?
Well, it's a little bizarre, isn't it? You do something for me, I do something for you, but you get to tell me when my work isn't good enough, and I don't get to tell you when your work isn't good enough.
I'm afraid you're not yet educated enough to tell me when my work isn't good enough. Oh, but don't worry. There are plenty of mechanisms for that. Tenure committees, peer-reviewed journals, peers in general.
Don't you want to try and do the absolute best you can possibly do?
Is there something you feel you're not getting from class?
Do you know that you consistently mispronounce several students' names?
I'm mispronouncing Zoe?
No, not my name, other students' names. Anna Maria.
Yes, Anna Maria.
No, it's Anna Maria. And Nasser, not Nazir.
Well, neither of those students has ever corrected me. You know, many people choose to anglicize their names. It's true. My birth name was Yanina. I changed it to Janine in the 3rd grade. It made me feel at home.
That's nice. I'm happy that that worked for you. You should offer your students a choice about what works for them.
I do. They're welcome to come and talk to me about their preferences like adults.
You could ask your students about their pronouns.
I don't think it's respectful to pry. I go by whatever pronouns a student indicates they want to use.
Based on what?
Their name, their general appearance.
But those things don't always align. A person could wear dresses and want to be called a he.
Well, in that case, it seems to me that person wants to confuse people and will enjoy watching me get it wrong.
Are you being sarcastic about the students' lives?
No, I'm not, but I mean, come on.
You come on. You have students who are vulnerable, who may not feel as comfortable as you do in this elite environment, who are just trying to survive through their days without reminders of
Trying
discomfort.
to survive? Oh, they're trying to survive on the mean streets of this ivory playground. I mean, is a 1,000-year-old manuscript going to fall on their heads?
They're trying to avoid emotional trauma.
Trauma. I am not torturing anyone. I am not a war zone. It's your whole generation with your trigger warnings and your safe spaces.
It's not about being fragile. It's about being aware.
I may be behaving suboptimally, but when you throw around words like survive and trauma, you invite people to belittle your cause.
Only if you're looking for ways to belittle your students, which I think makes you unfit to be a teacher.
That's preposterous. I am teaching you. I am trying to advise you about your use of language.
People don't teach through mockery.
Oh, well, now you're undermining the entire British system of pedagogy.
Please stop joking.
Oh, look, all right. Humor can be difficult, but my point was...
Can you not say but for once? Can you hear? Can you try to listen, please?
I'm listening. It's inevitable that I am going to have opinions.
That is a but.
But I am listening. What other suggestions do you have for me? I love critical dialogue. I'm listening.
Don't make jokes about savages.
No,
But
metaphorical savages. I wasn't referring to any of the cultures historically referred to as savages. I would never do that. It was ironic because I was talking about technologically advanced people.
maybe it would be if you hadn't told a delightful little story about the invasion of India, the forcible colonization of millions of people. It's funny to you?
No.
And those little remarks, like you're protesting the first female Supreme Court justice, as if I'm stupid, as if you know so much more than me.
I do know more than you.
Can you hear it? You have a contempt for your students, particularly your students who think different from you.
Differently.
You use your intelligence to critique and belittle people who have less power than you. Like your comments on my paper. You think that's helpful? To take a person who's trying to put forward an underrepresented point of view and to criticize them until they feel like they just might as well give up because you will never understand.
I didn't tell you to give up. I specifically told you I thought you had a lot of potential.
If I work harder than anyone else to please you.
To suit what a good methodology.
Listen, there is one appropriate way of responding to a woman of color who says I have an idea to assert, and that is to shut up and listen. Because she has experiences you cannot possibly know and insight you can learn from.
To shut up and listen, as you so rudely put it, would be doing you a disservice. If all you want to hear is that you are 100% right and everything you do is perfect, that is not a service I provide. I have been to you exactly the teacher I would have wanted.
But I'm not you. That's the thing. You like white ideas. You get white ideas. So you are not qualified to critique my thinking. And in lieu of that, I would like for you to hear and validate what I have to say.
I am not going to validate you. You're not a parking ticket. You are a very young person with a lot to learn. including that you will never get ahead in life if you are rude and confrontational with powerful people when they're trying to help you. What are you doing?
I'm canceling plans with a friend for tonight. I'm not going to be in any mood to go out.
Look, I think we should call it a day. Actually, I have some work to get done.
You said you were free until 8:30.
Zoe, greatness does not come from a supportive environment. I, I have a friend. She's one of the top cardiothoracic surgeons in the country. Do you think that she got there because a doctor stood next to her during her first 100 surgeries and said, "You're doing great. Your approach is really valid"? No, he, and it was a he, said, "That's not perfect. That's not nearly good enough." That's how she got better.
How did you raise your son? Did you correct him all the time? Say, that's not perfect, that's not nearly good enough? Or did you love to listen to him express every little opinion? I want to be treated however you treated him. I want the white boy treatment.
Well, I certainly told him when I thought he was being wrong-headed and disrespectful.
America was blessed with not only Washington and Jefferson, but very happy to have Washington and Jefferson as two of its first three leaders.
Yes. We could have had Robespierre. We could have had Lenin.
You know you said that in a room that included at least 5 African Americans.
Yes. I see that is unpleasant, but you must know that there's no evidence that any other leader would have succeeded in stopping slavery.
You love them. You love them. I would give anything to have been in that room. That's what you said to me. And all I could think of when you said that was that if I had been in that room, it would have been as a slave.
If I had been in that room, it would have been as a wife or a servant, not a politician.
Shut up. That is not the same. That is not the same thing.
It's not the same. I apologize.
So what are you going to do about it?
Do.
Yes.
I mean, I misspoke. I misspoke. But what you people have to understand
Us
is
people?
no. I did not mean that as a race thing. You millennials, you people who have not been out in the world, what you will never understand is that it is easy to pick apart all the ways a person didn't say things quite right. And what is hard, okay, is to put something out there in the world, to pass a law or teach a class or to even be Howard Stern and to tell a dick joke. It's challenging. You don't do it perfectly, but at least you're adding something to the world instead of complaining about it like a teenager.
Are you going to add more Black history to your curriculum?
Well, if you wait a week, we're about to start talking about Haiti.
Are you going to talk about the lives of Washington and Jefferson slaves?
It's a course on revolutions.
So no, you're going to ignore a fifth of Americans' experiences with the revolution. You're going to ignore the bad bits. I mean, your whole generation. You say we're fragile, and you've kept reading the children's book version of American history your whole adult lives. Well, trigger warning. America was a land of equality for white Americans because they stole their land, and then they didn't pay their workers. When 20% of the population has literally nothing, the other 80% gets more. That's your land of opportunity. And that's why that 80% was so happy and so unified with their moderate democratic government and so able to have the most successful, prosperous, radical revolution of all time. Teach that. Spend your last 10 lectures on that.
It's horrible. So much of history is horrible. Nasty, poor, brutish, and short. Tainted with racism, sexism, classism, cruelty, exploitation, religious persecution, casual disregard for our mutual humanity. But we can't spend all of our time focusing on that. There are other important things to say.
For millions of Americans, slavery is the most important thing about American history.
It isn't. It isn't. Democracy is the most important thing about American history.
Please.
Only because slavery is a thing that happened throughout human history. While the birth of constitutional democracy, that's us. We changed the world. All men are created equal. Even if Jefferson didn't think that that included women or slaves or white men without property, he still wrote it down. And as a result, it's something we keep striving towards. It's our North Star. America is a painstakingly lengthy but ultimately revolutionary quest for freedom.
America is an engine of racial oppression.
I feel sad for you that you can't see any of the beauty. I understand it, but you're missing something really wonderful.
You know, when you were dicking around backpacking in Holland or whatever, you know what I was doing the summer between my freshman and sophomore year? That was the summer Mike Brown was shot. I was marching. Have you ever been to Ferguson? You really must go to Ferguson.
That's very impressive. But look, you'd be surprised. The year you're born makes an enormous difference in the ways you do or don't help the world. By the time I got out of college, the Vietnam War was over. The civil rights marches were over. We didn't have the internet to tell us what was happening in St. Louis. My activism has been in the workplace.
In an embarrassment of riches, America was blessed with not only Washington and Hamilton, but James Madison as well.
Oh, you wish we didn't have the Bill of Rights. That's a novel idea. Did you prepare that notebook for this meeting?
In all my classes, I mark the things that I shouldn't have to hear. It's a little way to process it so I can move on. I was gonna send you a note at the end of semester, a really nice note, saying, "Excuse me, Professor Bosco, I really enjoyed your class, but you said a couple things I thought were problematic, and you might want to be more thoughtful next time around."
Well, it's not too many things.
While the slave ownership and hypocrisy of men like Jefferson is galling to us, we do have to understand them as men of their time.
That's not dismissive. That's trying to understand the past. It's like the anecdotes. We have to understand that justice is not always obvious, that history is carried out by flawed, imperfect human beings.
But who are you humanizing?
Everyone.
Washington commanded admiration, even adoration, from the people who knew him.
He did. What? He did.
Not all the people who knew him.
Oh, yes. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Can't make an assertion today without adding 4 or 5 asterisks. You say, manual laborers had it rough in the 19th century. And you have to add asterisk, but not all the laborers had the same experience because of race, asterisk. And of course, within each race, people were treated differently based on gender, asterisk. None of which is meant to suggest any sort of endorsement of the gender binary, asterisk. Oh, and meanwhile, let's not forget that any discussion of manual labor is inherently ableist. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. I mean, none of it is wrong, but it is a seriously inefficient way to discuss the working conditions of the 19th century laborers.
You have a picture of George Washington on your walls. You have a picture of a racist criminal on your walls, looming over me as I sit here like this constant reminder that I do not need.
I also have a picture of Sabata. He wasn't perfect. And I have a picture of Lech Walesa. He was a Catholic stooge.
You bought that and had it framed and hung it up because you have no ability to understand the perspectives of your students of color, because you have never even tried to imagine our perspectives. And that is traumatic. Yes, traumatic. The constant dismissal of slavery is traumatic. The fact that you don't care is traumatic.
Oh my God, get over it. It didn't happen to you. Oh, be angry at what's going on now. Be angry at Ferguson, but don't be
Don't tell me what to be angry about.
My family is Polish, okay?
Good for you.
You know what was going on in Poland in the 1770s? The country was being partitioned. It was being carved up like a prize hog between Prussia, Russia, and Austria. It was the start of hundreds of years of bloody, violent invasion and repression. Yet I read a book about the Catherine the Great, and I do not start weeping.
Because everything turned out fine for your people.
Oh, you are a student here, okay? You have one of the best lives of anyone in history ever.
I need you to say it. I need you to say that first came 250 years of slavery, and then came 100 years of segregation, and then came a deliberate and systematic attempt to exclude Black people from good school districts and good jobs, and to lock them up and hunt them down for things white people do every day. I need you to say that for whatever else it stands for, America has systematically persecuted one part of its population in a way that has benefited you.
That is an oversimplification.
I am so tired of remembering for the both of us. This should be a pain we share. I have been carrying all of this around on my own. I've been carrying your share of history as well as mine, and I need you to take your half. I cannot carry it all anymore. I will get exhausted and go crazy. I will have no joy.
You are making yourself crazy with your Post-its, with your paper, with your refusal to see the good in anything. It is clearly more of a strain than you can bear. Do you think you're the first person in history to get hurt? The grand sweep of history is that some people hurt other people and they never really make amends. And you have to move on and win the next round. But you will not win the next round if you keep thinking like this. It will cost you a grade. It will cost you jobs. It will cost you political power. No one likes to feel pity. No one likes to feel guilt. And no one likes anything that sounds anything like whining. And everyone is tired of hearing about racism. You are so relentlessly negative that you make everything seem uglier. Why would anyone want to listen to that? I hate seeing the world through your eyes. Yes. By all means, rather than engaging in serious intellectual discussion, be on your phone instead. Be a millennial. That's illegal.
In the state of Connecticut, only one of the parties participating in a conversation has to be aware that it's being recorded. Google.
Look, well, I hope you're still recording. When people are speaking casually, they're not careful with every word. God, I can barely remember what I said. I helped you with your paper. I listened to your concerns about class. I didn't say anything wrong. I didn't say anything wrong.
Okay, then you won't mind if I share what you said.
With who? Who are you planning on sending it to? The provost, the dean?
No, no. They just end up like having a meeting with us to try and mediate a better understanding or whatever. No, I think no one does anything real unless there's public pressure.
I am not a racist. I am not. Just to ask anyone who's ever known me, I'm not.
You're more afraid of looking like a racist than you are of being a racist. Don't you want to think about that?
I care very, very deeply about equality. I care about...
Okay, what are you doing to promote equality? Are you using the money you saved on your son's tuition to fund a scholarship for a student of color? Are you getting all of your white friends together to call congressional representatives and demand criminal justice reform? Or do you actually never bother to think about racial equality and now you're just trying to claim that you do to save face when you know you've been behaving badly? Because in that case, you can go fuck yourself.
What do you want?
I want this to be your problem. I have spent my life living with this problem. Why are my teachers talking to me the way they do? Why are my friends looking at me the way they do? Why is this boy interested in me? Why isn't this boy interested in me?
I get it.
No, you do not. That is my whole point. You don't get to say enough. It keeps coming. Was I just imagining it, or did my sociology professor jump when I jogged past him in the street after dark? And will I ever really be safe if that's the kind of thing that happens here? Here! Is there anything for me to love about my country? Any way for me to look around this country with love when everything is tainted? Everything! And no one else seems bothered by it. Everyone else seems happy as a clam. And I have the burden of seeing it for what it really is. I have to educate people, and I have to decide when to stop educating people and just let it go in order to stay likable and employable. And I have to try and focus on all of my dumb and problematic assignments with all of this shit racing through my head. And it's all my problem. How is that fair? So here I am in your office. This is your problem.
Look, Zoe, you have made your point. We will start this conversation again, and I will do it better. Just delete the recording.
Don't tell me what to do.
I can look over the text of my lectures. I can take another look at your paper.
That's not really enough anymore.
So what is? What is?
Say I'm a racist.
The only assumptions I ever made about you were that you were capable of great work and able to handle an honest conversation.
Your work favors people of one race more than another. That's racism, so say it.
Perhaps my work has had unequal effects.
Say it.
No.
Fine. Say, what was that thing I have sinned?
Pekavi.
A little louder.
Pekavi.
Thank you.
Are you satisfied now? I mean, do you want to hear that I've learned my lesson? I've learned my lesson.
I want everyone else to hear that lesson.
What does that mean, everyone else?
I'm going to release the whole thing.
Fuck you. Fuck you.
I think I have enough.
Where is it? Where is it?
It's too late. I hit send.
I was born by the river in a little tent. Oh, and just like the river, I've been running ever since. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh, yes, it will. I say, brother, help me please. But he winds up knocking me back down on my knees. And oh, there have been times that I thought I couldn't last for long, but now I think I'm able to carry on. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh, yes it will.
Hello, welcome. Would you like any tea by any chance? I was just about to have some tea.
No, thank you.
Well, well, I won't either. Thank you for coming in.
You're welcome.
How are you?
Um,
I I know. What a ridiculous question.
a bit, yeah. I'm keeping it together. How are you?
I'm keeping it together, as you say. This whole thing has been just quite something. If I'd known how many people could be persuaded to care about a history course, I would have. I thought it would be good for us to meet. Zoe, I want to apologize. I have gone back and listened to that recording of our conversation again and again. And the things that I said have haunted me. I didn't understand your feelings, and instead of trying to understand them, I tried to talk you out of them.
Yes.
And you tried to tell me that, and I didn't listen. And for all of that, I apologize. People may not always be able to agree, but we can believe that another person feels the way they say they do, and have reasons for feeling that way. I really want. I'm sorry. You go.
My friends tried to tell me not to come today. They said you disappoint me again, upset me even more.
Well, I certainly hope to prove them wrong.
I thought they would probably be right. I guess I've been feeling lost in all of this. I mean, my friends have been so supportive, most of my friends, my real friends. They tell me that I'm brave and that I'm beautiful and strong, but I am not feeling any of those things. I mean, it's insane. All of this has been insane. Like, first came the Nice articles saying it's time we look at how we teach American history, saying I called much needed attention to microaggressions in academia, calling me a hero.
Yes.
Did you read the one about how one of Washington's slaves ran away and tried to start a revolution in Sierra Leone?
I did. Yes, I thought it was a good article.
Lots of flair. Then there were the articles I expected. Free speech, yada, yada. Back in my day, we weren't so sensitive, that kind of thing. Then came the pieces listing all the points I forgot to make, like the one about how I didn't mention that Latinx history is even more underrepresented than Black history.
Well, that article forgot to mention Native Americans, who were much more involved in the revolution.
And the one about how microaggressions have a disproportionate effect on poor students, and I couldn't possibly understand their feelings.
I didn't think that was fair, though.
No, they were right.
I didn't know that you were from Westchester, incidentally. I'm from Tarrytown. My mother used to clean houses in your neighborhood.
You think that proves something? then the marches, then the articles criticizing the marches for not having a clear enough platform, then the articles criticizing the criticisms of the marches, then the blog posts criticizing the articles for paying attention to an elite school when there are so many more serious problems. And I just want to be like, I'm a person. I am a person. I'm not some kind of walking manifesto you can grade. I'm a person you should seek to understand. And then I thought, fuck, I know who else probably feels that way.
I've been reading everything. Absolutely everything. I can't stop myself, even the footnotes.
Yeah, no, don't read those.
Well, I must say, you come from a generation that doesn't know the difference between a hyperlink and a footnote. You're all convinced that if you can link to someone who agrees with you, you've proven your point.
I saw your son's op-ed. I didn't think he should have written that.
I thought you would agree with him.
Oh, I do, but I think family loyalty is important. I was raised not to criticize my parents in public.
He was raised to speak his mind.
I wanted to say that I'm sorry if this has caused problems within your family.
I appreciate your saying that. But Zoe, I'm grateful that you did what you did. You made me look at my subject and see things I never saw before. I'm planning a whole new chapter for my book, a comparative study on the role of minority populations in revolutions, looking at Kurds in Iran, Afro-Cubans under Castro, the Uyghurs under Mao, and, of course, African Americans.
Okay, I don't want to like that idea, but that actually does sound like something I would read.
I'm especially concentrating on tracking down more diverse primary sources. We speak about African American history in generalities. We say life tended to be like this, or roughly 60% of slaves experienced that. But the letters, the testimonies so many of them are from white men.
Yeah, I know.
And the result is a colossal failure of empathy. All the science indicates that people empathize more with individuals than with groups. And what we need.
I know all of this. I don't need you to explain this to me.
I'm not explaining. I know that you know it. I'm simply expressing what's on my mind. And of course, I'm not limiting my explorations to history. I've been reading a lot about our contemporary situation too. Mass incarceration, police brutality, implicit bias. I've been reading a lot of Ta-Nehisi Coates.
You should get a hat that says that. I'm not an idiot.
Of course not.
You're 10 years under review because you verbally and physically assaulted a student. The university put out a statement saying that they understood the protesters' concerns and that they would be examining whether your presence on campus was in the best interest of students' academic and personal well-being.
That's true. I won't insult your intelligence by pretending it isn't part of why I wanted to speak to you.
I think you already did.
I want to propose a joint statement. I say I'm grateful that you've made me aware of certain issues in my teaching and in the field of American history, which is true.
And I say what?
Whatever you want.
Whatever I want?
Well, you could say that you're proud your work has given rise to a long overdue conversation about race on this campus. That you thank your protesters for their support and that they should feel that their efforts have been a huge success. It's not that I'm escaping without punishment. I am suspended without pay.
You'll be fine. I'm sure your husband has a fancy job too.
Wife, actually. Surprised?
The articles just said spouse.
Well, my spouse is a wife. The habit of not talking about it is so deeply ingrained because I never wanted to be the gay scholar or the female scholar. I wanted to be the great scholar. I'm sorry that the best advice I knew how to give you was toughen up. If you can believe it, when I was coming up in this field, that was the best advice I got. And I'm still not certain it was wrong. I failed you. Maybe I was not the right teacher for you. But for many students, I have been exactly the teacher they needed. I have ideas the world needs. The publication of my book has been postponed indefinitely. I have no classes, no research assistants. I have been gently shunted aside from my DC consulting work and replaced by a Republican moron from George Mason who wouldn't know a coup from a garden party. So at this point, my reputation is actually an issue of national security. My son is barely speaking to me.
I've been getting death threats, like a lot of death threats, actually. Some were specific enough to make police think they could be serious. I took an incomplete for the semester.
Zoe, I am so sorry that's happening.
I wasn't actually at the protests, my roommates went, but even before the threats, I stopped going to classes. My professors look at me like I'm a bomb that's about to go off. I don't go outside anymore, except for once a day I walk to Walgreens and buy like anything I shouldn't. Like if they found a way to make chocolate flavored Cheetos, I would buy those. And I'm someone who I take such good care of my body, but now all I want to do is sit in my room and watch Netflix and eat bags and bags of these disgusting things. Not just because of this or you, but because of the news, this country.
Yes, I mean, never in my life did I think I would be pining for Jeb Bush. Yet here we are. The Republican nominee is, well, you know.
Yeah. So yeah, I sit around a lot and like I've read blog posts, so I call it self-care. But I ask myself, what would Harriet do? What would Angela do? What would Rosa do? And I think you were right. I have one of the best lives of anyone in history ever. And that makes me feel like a real shit for being such a weakling. And that makes me want more Netflix.
Zoe, I don't mean to be insensitive.
That's like an almost certain tip off that you're going to be.
Yes, but all of this is another reason why the idea of a joint statement, it's a good idea. It's a good idea for you too. If everyone all around the internet heard that you and I were collaborating, it could be safer for you. And I'm sure you've thought about this too, but you know, when you're done with school, because I know that you will finish school with flying colors, when you're applying for jobs, look, everyone is going to be able to Google you and see this, that you recorded someone without them knowing, and that you took that recording public. And I know why you did it, but employers are scared of that sort of thing.
If someone can't see the value in what I did, I don't want to work with them.
That's easy to say, but it could be a hard truth to live with. But imagine if all the alumni from 50 or 60 years at this Futures Leaders grooming ground read about how you helped reunify a shaken university, how an esteemed professor thinks you did more to invigorate life an intellectual life on this campus than any student she's ever worked with, which is true. Just imagine the job offers you could get then. I still say what I always said. You are a person of enormous potential. Position yourself to use it. It's not too late for us to help each other.
What you're offering, or I mean, what you're suggesting, right? Because it's not like a generous offer, it helps you too. That would be my father's dream come true. He's been furious with me. He says I've been careless with opportunities he fought to provide.
Well, he has a point. I'm not saying he has the only point, just that he has a point.
See, I find myself with three possible paths. Path one is my parents' path, the path you're describing. I get the best possible degree, I get the best possible job, I make the most possible money. I show my Black excellence to the world, and I hope that the world sees it. I hope they aren't too threatened by it, and I hope I don't get so tired of the everyday awful that I snap again. Path two is I could leave. I could say I'm done with this country. I shouldn't have to sign a statement to not receive death threats. I could just make like Josephine Baker, move to Paris or Nigeria or Brazil, publish Nigericana. Maybe there I'll be exotic, like, ooh, there's that American Black lady. Maybe there my feelings will seem new and interesting, and no one will tell me to get over anything ever again. Or path three, I can consecrate myself to the cause. I can sign on for a lifetime of marches and protests and fighting and threats and taking it all on my shoulders to fix the world. So I came here to choose 1, 2, or 3.
Well, please, anything I can do to help you figure it out.
Talk to me about this statement. I mean, it can't just say, good job, you can all go home now, right?
No.
Because nothing's really changed, right?
No, of course not, but
I mean, you were right. I was worried about such stupid things before. My GPA, waving poster board at Howard Stern. I want this pain to be worth it. If I'm going to get targeted and blamed and threatened, I want it to be for real changes, real concrete changes that mean something.
yes, to move forward. What if it said, we both agree. We both agree that for this college to remain a leader in higher education, it needs to make certain changes. It needs
It needs a well-funded student resource center with people of color on its staff.
oh, okay, yes.
You sound like you don't really agree. I'd prefer for you to be honest.
No, I'm surprised. I would have thought your concerns would be more academic.
I'm getting to those.
Ah, yes. Good.
Just, there should be a building on this campus where students can walk in and say, I have a problem, and someone actually qualified is there to help. There should be therapists of color and queer therapists and really good tutors and better help with financial aid.
Yes, yes, there should be. God, is there still not? I mean, there certainly wasn't when I was there, but yes, good. You know what we should really say? That we call upon the university to invest its endowment more ethically. We did this in the 80s to try and stop apartheid. We should divest from for-profit prisons,
Oil companies, guns,
banks that engage in predatory lending, which is all banks.
all of it. We demand that the university defund now from all of it and invest in minority-owned businesses instead. We demand a decolonized curriculum.
A what?
A curriculum that doesn't assume everybody needs to read Beowulf and doesn't assume that the people who made the laws are more important than the people who suffered under them.
Well, what if we say we urge the university to offer a curriculum that reflects the full breadth of human knowledge and experience?
That sounds vague.
Well, it's meant to sound inspiring. Plus, it gets you out of the inevitable quibbles over the fact that the sort of soft power cultural influence you're referring to is technically more imperialism than colonialism. Technically.
Fine, write it. We demand that the school recruit a student body that matches the population of the United States.
Yes.
Within 5 years.
Oh, that isn't realistic.
I don't see why not. I mean, the kids are out there. The school just literally has to admit them.
No, you're trying to fix problems at the university level that are better fixed in the public school system.
You can't just wait for everything to be perfect.
Does more harm than good to admit someone to an education they aren't ready for.
Of course you're afraid of it. Of course you keep trying to do less.
Zoe, what do you think the ideal outcome from this statement?
Does campus become a positive place for students of color?
Yes. And for that to happen, we need more people on board. Ideally, faculty will read this statement and think, yes, I will fight for those changes.
Oh yeah, as long as the old white people like it.
Ideally, other students want to help. Ideally, it becomes a model for other schools.
Sure, yes.
I am telling you that if you want support, you need realistic goals.
Was this college totally 100% ready to admit women? Was that an easy, popular, realistic goal? Did you want them to take their time?
You're right. You're right. Within 5 years.
Then once those students are here, we demand that the university support them financially, emotionally, academically.
Yes.
We demand questions on student evaluations about whether professors are biased or problematic.
Well, yes.
We demand clear and immediate consequences for biased and problematic behavior.
Wait. You're describing punishments for people who make other people feel uncomfortable.
Yes.
The idea of evolution once made people feel uncomfortable. The idea of gay rights makes many, many, many people feel uncomfortable.
I'm talking about ideas that make vulnerable people uncomfortable.
And who do you think is going to draw that line?
I can draw it. I can draw it easily.
Zoe, my parents, okay, they fled Poland because of this sort of thing. Under the communists, you never knew when the person you were talking to might report you for wrong thinking, and it was crippling.
This is not a negotiation. You shouldn't be sitting there approving or disapproving or weighing in on what students of color need.
I am trying to help.
You cannot help. You are not an expert. You don't know anything about this.
I am an expert in change. I am an expert in university power structures. I have watched people try to change this college before, and I am telling you that many people will not be able to get on board with what you're describing.
Fuck them for not coming on board. Fuck them for caring more about their own needs than they do about people in pain.
Is that what you want me to write? You want me to write, fuck all of you? You think that will be persuasive?
Fuck them for needing to be persuaded.
Zoe, when you yell at people, you do not change their minds.
You do not get to dictate how I express myself. You want to help? Okay, hear me. Even if you don't like my tone, even if you think based on your limited perspective that I'm getting something wrong, do the right thing anyways. Help anyways. That is what helping looks like.
Look, Zoe, my movement, my people's movement, in my own lifetime, I have seen it succeed. Do you know how I found out that lesbians existed? How I found out that there was a word for what I was? I found out from a nun who was in the process of telling my class that it was something that got you sent to hell. The birth of my own identity came at the very moment when someone called my identity vile. I didn't have a chance to take 1 second of happiness from the fact that there was a word for it, which also meant that there were more of us. That happened when I was 14 years old. And this year, the Supreme Court upheld my marriage.
That's amazing.
But if I had given up on everyone who hurt me, I would not currently have a single friend or family member or colleague. And if we all done that, if we all said, fuck you for not caring, you need to be punished for what you think, we would never have gotten 60% of the country to agree with us. It's the reality of being gay in America or black in America. It's the pain of 10%. You need other people on your side.
Some people aren't trying to win over friends and family members. Some of us have enemies who hate us on sight. Some people don't get to stay in a closet and come out when it looks safe.
That only makes it more important that you be careful and that you be strategic. Is that fair? No. No part of it's fair. It's not fair that you have to win over people who have hurt you. It's not fair that you have to prove your humanity to people who get to withhold their help and quibble and disagree and offend while you're fighting for your dignity, for your life. It's not fair. It's infuriating, but it works. It works. It works. It works. Look, it works to find language that appeals to people. It works to compromise. It works to play nice.
I should not have to try to appeal to people who have made themselves comfortable in a white supremacist world.
No, you shouldn't have to. But you are, in the end, stuck sharing a world with them. And that's how democracy works. You need a majority on your side.
Then maybe democracy doesn't work.
Zoe.
I mean, be nice. That's your advice for me. Be nice.
No, not be nice. No, but there is a role for patience, for tolerance, for staying in a conversation with people you disagree with.
This is not the first time I've been told to be nice or patient. This is the 500th time. I was nice the first time I came into your office. You did not show a lot of tolerance for my disagreements.
I know it. It's true. I didn't.
I mean, all that I wanted was to like your class. I wanted to have the experience here that you had. I wanted to have the experience with this country that your family had. I wanted to thrive here. That's all I wanted. My parents were asked to be patient. Their parents were asked to be patient. Black Americans have tried being nice. We have been so goddamn fucking nice and patient.
It's working. Things are getting better. Our parents have better lives than our grandparents. We have better lives than our parents. The moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends towards justice.
Don't quote Martin Luther King while you try and get a black woman to shut up and be patient with the problems in her world.
Actually,
don't do that.
Theodore Parker said that, technically. King was quoting him. Parker was a 19th century abolitionist.
What do you think you just added to the world by saying that?
Accuracy. I added accuracy. America it's taken too long. Yes, it's taken far too long, far too long, but America is working. We just had our first black president, and we're about to have our first female president. Things are getting better, and now is a terrible time to give up.
We have our first black president, and we're still getting lynched. We have been nice and patient for 400 years, and I'm not happy with the results. You are, clearly. You think things are good enough or nearly good enough, getting there. But I'm telling you, they aren't. And I'm tired of you not being able to see that. I'm tired of you not being willing to do what's necessary. I'm tired of you trying to slow me down.
You know what? Maybe the statement should read.
Maybe it should read that we demand that within 5 years, the faculty of this university match the population of the United States. And in furtherance of that goal, I, Yanina Bosco, am stepping down because I believe that it would be to the benefit of this college and this country if American history were taught by a person of color.
Excuse me?
The thing is, I think someone else can do more to support students of color.
That actually isn't what most of this job is.
I mean, let's say I sign your statement. Let's say you go back to teaching. And then what? Maybe you give an extra handout on the Black experience during the Revolution. Maybe before you discuss our miraculous democracy, you talk just a little about how American opportunity was fertilized by oppression. If I'm really being optimistic, maybe you even remember to give me credit for those ideas. Maybe you show up for a couple of protests. I mean, I don't feel like I can count on that, but maybe you do. Even if you do all the right things, what are you really teaching? You're teaching 100 future leaders a year to say, yes, there are some horrible elements of the American past, asterisk. Yes, there are still things to fix. And as long as they do that, they can go off into the world and become guilt-free corporate lawyers or investment bankers or senators or artists and send their kids guilt-free to great schools and help them get good jobs. They don't actually have to give up a single bit of their money or their power because they're the good white people. I don't think I could be complicit in one more generation of American leaders learning that if they get 5% better than their parents, they can keep running the world. I can't sign that piece of paper because I think you should be fired. I think you should be done.
Oh, why me? Oh God, why me? Why couldn't you have wanted to study microeconomics or cognitive psychology or art history? Oh, you would have loved them with their Dutch masters. I mean, have you actually met the other people on this faculty? God. I could give you a list of the professors who have slept with undergraduates. There are multiple people in this department who told me to quit when I was having a kid. There is a person in the math department who voted for George Wallace, and you go after me?
It takes work not to be a bad person. You know that, right? You can't just be the least bad person in a lineup and call yourself good.
I did everything that was ever asked of me. I did the best that I could possibly do. And if you had been born who I was when I was, you would have the same opinions. You would have made the same mistakes. You cannot say that I'm a bad person if there is no way for me to be better.
Someone else can be better. That's why I want you out of the way.
I have won teaching awards. I have mentored people who have accomplished wonderful things.
You are an inherently oppressive and uninspiring figure for the students who matter most.
That's unfair. And don't laugh. It's not funny. Listen, you are describing a world where I am not right for a job because of my age and my skin color. That's not funny. That's awful.
Good. I want you to feel awful because that is what's fair. You know, I'm actually enjoying the opiate crisis. I like it that white people are having trouble with drug addiction. I want them to know how it feels. I want a white student to walk into this college and have only Black professors. I want an all-Black Supreme Court and all-Black juries. I want you to sit in front of an all-Black tenure committee. I want you all to work for 400 years and not be paid a dime.
That's not justice. You are not describing justice. You are describing revenge.
I am describing the world as I see it.
Oh, what? To want another human to just be done? What a terrible statement. You can't imagine what it is to make it through 60 years doing your absolute best, and then one day you find out you've made a mistake, and that's all anyone can see. You know, someday you'll make a mistake, Zoe. And when you do, I hope that that you are up against a person as bereft of empathy as yourself?
Look, it's really simple. It's not enough for you to be right or even for you to be good. You have to give up some of your power because you have too much. You have more than your fair share.
I do not think that a renewal of this fight between us is what this campus needs. We both know that there are very serious, very urgent problems out there in the world right now.
I give up.
I think
I give up. I give up on you. You have wasted so much of my time never hearing.
I don't think that this is good for you. More of these articles, more of these worries about your future.
Oh, yeah, very convincing.
No, really. I think, given your history of mental illness, it would be better for you if the news coverage stopped.
I don't have a history of mental illness.
You took a month-long leave of absence your junior year of high school for mental health reasons.
No, I didn't.
Well, I'm not going to say who, but someone from your high school faculty went to teachers college with a college friend.
I didn't take a leave of absence. I completed an independent project instead of going to class because my classes were uninspiring and stupid.
You wrote a piece in your creative nonfiction class here about your search for the perfect antidepressant.
A piece that ended with my decision to do without them.
Look, only it's easy to imagine the articles. Behind public activism, a history of personal trouble. It would be more unpleasantness, more division. Another friend who went to Johns Hopkins with my wife said that the recording of our conversation included many classic symptoms of people who suffered repeated mental trauma and who become a bit paranoid and hysterical as a result.
I'm not paranoid or hysterical.
You did say, I will go crazy. I will have no joy. Everything is tainted. You did say that.
Anyone can listen to that recording. Anyone can hear what you did.
And do you think that they will hear it? The general public of this country, the members of the tenure committee? Do you trust my colleagues to agree with you instead of me? The same ones you say look at you like a bomb that's about to go off.
What would your son think of you now?
All I want is what I had before. The thing is, Zoe, if you make it too difficult to be a good person, you all of a sudden make people strangely comfortable with being a bad person.
Do you know what made me decide to turn on my recorder?
I haven't the faintest clue. And I've wondered about it. I assumed when you showed me the camera, you must have been recording from the beginning, but you weren't.
No, I wasn't.
So what was it?
You said that I wouldn't get ahead if I alienated powerful people like you.
That's all? That's all I did? I told you the truth?
That's exactly how power works. You get to say that people have to make you happy. They have to talk just so, act really perfect. If they ever challenge you, they have to do it in just the right way, very respectfully and never enough, or you'll hurt them. With a grade, with an article, with a taser, with a bullet. Do things my way or I'll hurt you. That's the opposite of what ever America's supposed to be. I'm not playing along. I have enough privilege to say, Publish whatever you want. Do your worst. Because the minute you do not hold anything over me, I think that's the minute I will finally be free. The thing is, I'm done with this place. I'm tired of trying to work with these compromised, rotten things. My whole generation's done with it. The past can go fuck itself. America's still waiting on its real radical revolution. I'm going to help bring it about.
You idiot! You missed the whole point of class. Radical revolutions don't work. They turn out terribly for the countries they happen in. Do you want to know countries that had a radical revolution? Haiti, Russia, Iran. And do you seriously think you'd rather be living in one of those countries right now? Seriously. Do you think the Cultural Revolution made China better off?
I think people in those countries aren't still living under their old oppressors.
Because 100 million of them died. Do you have no respect for that? You little American baby. You have no idea how badly things can go. Do you know how many people moved to the United States this last century?
Well, a lot of them are moving back since they were treated so terribly.
Do you know how many people moved to Poland in that time? Nobody. Fucking nobody. Revolutions suck. They suck. Revolutions lead to death and chaos and scarcity. And then 2 years later, a brand new oppressor. They are not worth it. And that was the whole point of class. Thank God American didn't have a radical revolution.
Thank God those slaves never rose up.
Yes.
You know what you are?
Let me guess. A racist.
You're a coward. You could have never have been Washington. You would have been tugging on his arm, saying, wait a minute, George. Someone might not like this. Wait, there are tiny little things you're not getting right.
You have never listened. You learned absolutely nothing. And now whatever you set out to do is going to go wrong. 10%, Zoe. You're in the minority. How exactly do you think a war is going to go?
If you are so afraid of revolutions, you should have worked harder to make them unnecessary. Oh, I brought this back. I don't want your books.
Oh, no, of course you don't. Of course you don't. You and your whole fucking generation of savages.
You know what I hear when I listen to you?
Your own thoughts.
A death rattle.